I'm on my way to see a man called Rob Williams, a filmmaker, who, like me, has been recording, has been archiving the life around him on film. He's been doing it a lot longer than me though, since 1936.
I'm afraid I'm a little bit living in the past for many reasons, and if you live in a place long enough you become almost an historian by accident, and I always feel that I'm no historian, but I am the collector of the archives. Consequently, that has made me look back and record what has gone in the past.
Hello Rob, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks. You brought the summer with you. Now, this is my museum, which used to be originally a garage. Then it was my office for 30 years. Three of us were in here. We had 3 drawing boards. But I had so many projectors and cameras given to me, and I obviously had to go somewhere.
It's amazing just looking around here. There's so many.
So there it is there.
Wow.
All sorts of things.
Now here's something rather interesting. I see these little tightly rolled
Yes.
35mm film, and if I didn't know better I would say that that was nitrate film.
It was nitrate film.
Highly flammable.
That's right. These are the things where I used to keep these in my bedroom at home when I was still living at home. And when my father discovered they were inflammable, I was thrown out into a new shed in the garden. And the idea was, if I blew myself up, it would be better to me in the shed rather than in the house.
Let me take you back to the very early days of amateur filmmaking, back in the 30s when you first became interested in it. How common was it as a hobby? Did many people do it?
Not really. And of course my interest tended to go back before I had a camera. And I was obsessed with the cinema as such. But I knew I had to make films, but in those early days I didn't have a camera. And so the next best thing, I got a chocolate box and I cut 2 holes in it, and I used that as a dummy camera, and I used it all the time. I was shooting imaginary shots. If we went out in the car, I had this and look, this, that and the other. So it was an odd sort of training. And of course I had 35mm hand turn, almost toy projectors, but that's where the seed was sown.
Okay. So what was your first camera, Rob?
The first one was a thing called a Campro. That's the second from the left on the third shelf there, that's it. It's
Wow.
quite heavy because it was a casting, and it was called the Campro. And when you can take the lid off.
They're always difficult, aren't they, with these old cameras? Shall I do it? There you go.
That's it. And you can see the inside has a bulb. That was the projector element of the thing. Now, it took 9.5 cassette cameras. This was the take-up spool when it was a projector. When it was a camera, the cassette went in there with these. 9.5 was very distinctive because of the sprocket holes were in the centre. And the very first shots I wanted, or I took, were my parents, who had a tennis court, a hard tennis court, which they used for years and years, kept them fit. So for these films, and there were 2 or 3 very short shots, I insisted they put their whites on, so they had to put their white dresses on. And there's a shot of my father serving, my mother serving, and him returning, and that's it. Because 30 foot was 4 and 7 pence, 2 and 7 pence for the film and 2 bob for processing, which in those days was quite a bit of money, so I was taking far too short shots.
I'm interested in these old boxes of film because this is an unused box of film, isn't it? So this is Cine Kodak Super Sensitive Panchromatic Safety Film.
16mm.
Yeah, panchromatic, so it's black and white. And I look here, developed before December 1940.
And it's never left its box.
Oh. Just think of the wonderful images that could have been on that.
Absolutely.
Of Canterbury in the war.
I left in 1940 and to join the RAF. They decided to send me to Canada to train as a pilot. And after I finished my training, I met Eileen, and she was interested in the filming, but although I had no equipment. But on one occasion I had to go from New Brunswick up to Ontario to collect a couple of Blenheims, not just one rather. Anyway, I still have the telegram, Western Union, chance to buy Kodak 8mm camera, please reply. And immediately I said yes, and we bought the camera, and then we had 2 weeks holiday together, which is filmed, and to me that is the most precious film I've got, and it's lasted remarkably well, because in those days Kodachrome film you could get in Canada. So that's where it all started again on 8mm. And from that moment onwards I was recording our life. I'm now standing under a maple tree which came from Canada. Many years ago my wife went to Canada and I told her to, well, she rang up and told me she was bringing back a maple tree and would I prepare a plot, so I dug a great big hole, and when I met her at the airport I said, where's the tree? And she undid her handbag and brought it out, which was about 6 inches high, and there it is now, about 30 foot high. It's a wonderful crop of maple leaves, and they're just about coming out now.
I went to a wedding and filmed it for someone, not to do the formal video, but just for my own sake, because I was recording my life. And I didn't take the modern camcorder. I took a 1950s wind-up clockwork Bolex 16mm camera. Everyone looked at me as if I was mad. And so there's a real pleasure in using wonderful
well, there
equipment.
is, of course, if you can get the film.
Let's talk about Sally for a bit. When was she born and where was she born?
Born in 1948, born at a nursing home in Birchington. It was a private nursing home, and when I first visited her, Eileen was still in bed, of course, but there was Sally in what, to my mind, was an airing cupboard.
Some people would accuse me of living behind a lens, in that some people would even say that I don't fully live my life, because rather than joining in the family event or whatever, I will tend to have a camera in my hand and I'll be filming the family event or whatever.
Well, I'm a little bit like that. In fact, pictures of me are very rare. Pictures of everybody else, and very often when people see a film they say, well, where were you? And you say, well, I took it. But there it is, it doesn't occur to me. I remember when at times I was forced to be in a family group, and I had a camera which didn't have an automatic control, and I remember I had a piece of cotton which I used to hold and pull it, and it used to take the picture. I accept change, it's going to happen. I mean, taking our own field now in video. I've always argued that you buy something in the shop, you go to the shop door and it's obsolete. Things are changing so fast and you think, well, I've just mastered that and now they're going to alter it. I mean, the VHS is out, the DVDs are in, now we're high definition and you name it, we're going to change it. There it is, it's progress. Well, it's rather funny because that was purely taken as a family record of them going across the ferry. And in those days we used to go down the bottom of the hill, put ourselves across half the time, but there was a young lad there sometimes. And even on a Sunday you go and sit on the lawn, you're the only people there having a drink. because it wasn't easy to get to.
What happened to the ferry?
Oh well, when they built the bridge it was just pushed to one side and just rotted away.
Why did they close the station?
Oh, that was the saddest thing of the lot. It never should have happened. And the crazy thing is, between Ramsgate and Ashford, it was the only station that was closed. Not only did they close it, but they pulled it down, which was madness. And particularly people used to use it for all sorts of things. Even the King came here duck shooting once and he slept in the sidings. But these things do happen. It was very, very, very sad. Fortunately, I did film the last few weeks of it, including the wonderful station master who was also the signalman and the level crossing keeper. And there was a fair distance between the signal box and the level crossing. And he coped on a bicycle, so that's been filmed. But it wasn't until in the 60s that I really felt I should do something serious. And that started the Chislett saga. I did a thing called The Four Seasons of Chislett. I then did one of the Chislett celebrations of the Jubilee and the Royal Wedding. And I did another one of Bygone Chislett, all running for about 50 minutes. And the first one, The Four Seasons, was a great success.
How has Chislett changed since you made those original films?
The greatest change now, we've been here 50 odd years now. When we first came, it was a village. Villages are no longer as they were. They are purely dormitories. And people here we don't know. Whereas when we first came, we knew everybody. And they knew us. And I always remember when our daughter was married, I was the last one to travel with her in the car to the church. And as we went through the village, people were standing at the doors waving at us. Today they wouldn't even know we exist. That's the greatest loss. The old Cine Club, who people were leaving films to, people died and they left them films. And at one time they were kept in an attic. They said, that's the last place you want to keep a film. So they knew I was interested in equipment, and so bit by bit I was gathering, quite without any effort really, various films. And the sort of thing, once you start a collection, it continues. People come to me and say, could you copy these onto video? When it's all over, they say, well, we don't want the film back. You might as well have the projector. I had one man who came here, he was a retired consultant, and he had a beautiful projector, and highly expensive, and a camera. And he said, right, well, you might as well have these. And he arrived here, and I'm 86, he was about 88, I think, and both on sticks, and we couldn't carry the projector, and we had to drag it in. But during the conversation, I said, what about your films? He said, oh, well, we dumped those. I said, oh, dear, dump the film. And he said, well, I've got a young wife, and she can't bother to clutter, and so we got rid of them all. I said, how old's your young wife? And she said, she's 82.
Can I tell you about a dream? I sometimes have this dream where, and I love it, I've only had it about once or twice, where I go into a shop, a camera shop, and they've got all these lovely Super 8 cameras still at the old original prices.
once I started collecting equipment, this was the thing, you see. She said, "Oh God, what's all this junk coming in the house?" You see, and I hadn't got my museum there. And I remember on one occasion, I used to smuggle it in and put it in a cupboard, you see. And she said, "I see there's another thing in that cupboard," and it was a bit of a game that went on. Now, on one period, I was in hospital, and some chap came to the front door with two great projectors.
You spent most of your life behind the lens. How does it feel taking part in this film where you're in front of it?
It's great fun, very interesting actually. I don't mind it at all.
It's funny though, isn't it, that you obviously feel very comfortable, and yet you spent all your life the other side of the camera.
Yes.
If something bad has happened in your life, do you respond to it by making a film about it?
That's difficult. When my dear wife died, that was the last thing in my mind, and that wasn't recorded. And yet, within 2 or 3 months, I made a film of her life.
Do you think about your wife on a regular basis?
Oh yes, always, never a day without it. Not doing it as a duty, it just happens. There are many things. And there's always that little voice in the background when I'm doing some sort of venture. And now I think I've told you the story when I stored all my VHS tapes in the laundry. And this little voice from the past said, "This is a laundry, not a bloody film studio."